Rebellion and raw power, punk and metal music shook the foundations of mainstream culture. This is the story of how two loud, aggressive genres rewrote the rules of rock.
Punk and metal were forged in the fires of discontent, social, political, and cultural. Their roots, though distinct, emerged from a shared need to rebel against the mainstream. Punk trickled out from the 1960s U.S. garage rock scene, fueled by a desire to push back against the bloated commercialism of the hippie era. Early punk was raw, aggressive, and deeply anti-establishment, a complete rejection of what rock had become.
Across the Atlantic in 1976, punk exploded in Britain, driven by economic hardship, rising unemployment, and class tension. The Sex Pistols, managed by Malcolm McLaren, emerged as a chaotic symbol of this frustration. Their anthem, Anarchy in the UK, became a national controversy, capturing the anger of an alienated generation. In the United States, punk found its voice in New York City at venues like CBGB, where bands like the Raymonds stripped rock down to its basics. Loud, fast, short songs that felt like a punch in the face. This DIY attitude became a hallmark of the genre.
Heavy metal, meanwhile, emerged slightly earlier, in the late 1960s and early 70s. In industrial UK cities like Birmingham, where post-World War II gloom and urban decay were a daily reality, bands like Black Sabbath reflected this darkness through heavy, distorted guitars and lyrics about war, addiction, and despair. Their sound was heavier and more ominous than anything that came before. Punk and metal didn't rely on major labels or mainstream radio. They spread like wildfire through underground shows, independent record labels, handmade signs, and cassette tape for trading. Punk especially grew in conservative towns as a form of rebellion. Both movements became tight-knit subcultures united by alienation and defiance.
Pop punk is a punk subculture that combines power pop melodies and chord changes with speedy punk tempos and loud guitars. It includes loud guitars of punk rock music with power pop melodies and lyrical themes, although delivered with an angsty vibe. It has evolved over the years. The vocals are cleaner and not as harsh than before, where the vocals were more raw and were more in your face. Different bands include Weezer, Green Day, Blink-182, Paramore, Fall Out Boy, The Offspring, Fastbacks, MXPX, Rancid, Red Cross, The Donnas, Less Than Jake, The Menzingers, and My Chemical Romance.
Emo punk is a unique music genre that's all about expressing deep feelings. Starting in the 80s, it blends the energy of punk rock with the emotional lyrics of emo music. The sound is a cool mix of fast-paced guitar riffs, catchy melodies, and intense vocals. It isn't just about the music, but a culture, a style, and a new way of life. It uses dark clothing, heavy eyeliner, and lots of band merch. It encourages you to feel deeply, speak your truth, and rock out while doing it. Different bands include The Anniversary, Piebald, Rainer Maria, Hot Rod Circuit, Braid, Jawbox, and Sunny Day Real Estate.
Nu metal is a subgenre of alternative metal that includes heavy metal music with many other different styles like hip-hop, grunge, alternative rock, hard rock, and funk. It was influenced by and has features of synth pop, hardcore punk, jazz, rap metal, groove metal, and industrial metal. It is a less aggressive form of death metal, and elements of the genre have become part of other hybrid genres like metalcore and deathcore. Different bands include Korn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, Deftones, Crazy Town, Soulfly, Alien Ant Farm, and Static X.
Alternative metal. Bands were bound by their incorporation of traditional metal influences and openness to approaches experimenting with the form, usually by the way of their electric influences and uncommon approaches. The name is used as a very loose categorization, but it is usually used to describe artists playing a style of rock music which is considered either a unique approach to heavy music, normally not based on heavy metal, or difficult to define as strictly metal. Different bands include Rage Against the Machine, L7, AFI, The Smashing Pumpkins, Nine Inch Nails, and Helmet.
To understand punk and metal, you have to understand what they were reacting to. These genres didn't appear out of nowhere. They were shaped by the chaos of history, war, economic collapse, political corruption, and social unrest. Heavy metal emerged in late 1960s Birmingham, England, a city scarred by the aftermath of World War II. Factories closed, unemployment rose, the skyline was gray with decay.
From that bleak landscape came Black Sabbath, whose music captured the darkness people lived through every day. Their lyrics weren't just about fantasy or horror, they're about real-life pain like addiction, war trauma, and economic despair. As the genre evolved in the 1980s, metal didn't shy away from hard topics. Thrash metal bands like Metallica and Megadeth confronted nuclear war, government corruption, inequality, echoing Cold War anxieties and social disillusionment. Even today, metal speaks out against environmental collapse, racism, and mental health crises, becoming a kind of social commentary for people who feel unheard.
Punk was born out of frustration with the status quo. In the 1970s, New York and London, the economy was failing. Youth unemployment soared, people didn't trust the government, and the idealism of the 60s had crumbled into syncretism. Punk was the musical rebellion to all of it.
The Sex Pistols openly mocked the British monarchy. The dead Kennedys tore into U.S. foreign policy. Punk became a voice for the working class, for minorities, and for youth who felt abandoned by the system. It wasn't just about music. It was about being heard. Punk signs, graffiti, and DIY concerts created spaces for people to speak out on racism, sexism, classism, and everything the mainstream ignored. In short, punk and metal became emotional and political lifelines for those living through historical crises.
Punk and metal didn't just change music, they created icons to impact stretched into fashion, politics, and identity. The Ramones had short and simple songs and leather jackets. They invented the punk blueprint. The Sex Pistols ignited moral panic in the UK with their political lyrics. Clash combined punk with political activism and warned of a collapsing world.
Metal artists like Black Sabbath, who often called the first true metal band, their dark, sludgy sound and lyrics about war and addiction redefined rock. Led Zeppelin pushed the boundaries of rock into heavier, mystical territory. Metallica, thrash metal pioneers whose fast, aggressive music tackled government corruption and personal trauma. And Iron Maiden, who brought theoretical storytelling to metal with epic songs and elaborate stage shows. These artists shaped how we see and hear punk and metal.
Songs weren't just music, they were protest, therapy, and revolution. Search and Destroy by the Stooges was chaotic and aggressive. They laid the groundwork for punk's rebellious sound. Holiday in Cambodia by the Dead Kennedys was a brutal satire of privilege and ignorance. They criticized U.S. politics and consumerism, sparking controversy. Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols, banned on British radio for its anti-government lyrics. It became a cultural firestorm. London Calling by The Clash addressed nuclear fears and climate change, one of punk's most politically potent songs.
Back in Black by AC/DC was a metal classic that celebrated survival and defiance after their singer's death. Sad But True by Metallica was dark and introspective. It explored personal pain and manipulation. Chop Suey by System of a Down blended metal with politics and existential themes, often misunderstood, yet it was widely popular. Duality by Slipknot described internal chaos and mental health struggles, became an anthem for disaffected youth. Civil War by Guns N' Roses tackled the horrors of real conflict and government hypocrisy. Each song reflected the concerns of its time, from war to personal trauma, and some were even targeted for censorship because they pushed uncomfortable truths into the spotlight.
When punk and metal first arrived, America wasn't ready. These genres were loud, angry, and unapologetically different. They faced backlash from parents, politicians, and the media, accused of promoting violence, Satanism, and anti-American values. But that rejection was the point.
Redefined youth rebellion, inspired fashion trends, ripped clothes, safety pins, dyed hair, gave a platform to marginalized voices, including women, LGBTQ, youth, and people of color.
Metal encouraged emotional expression in a society that often silenced it. It tackled taboo topics like addiction, mental illness, war, and death. It became a community for outcasts, a place to belong. Both genres influenced politics, fashion, visual art, and challenged what considered acceptable music and speech. They were frequently censored, boycotted, and even banned, but their message endured. Today, we still feel their influence in music and protest culture and how people use art to demand change.
What started as rebellion became a cultural revolution. Punk and metal gave a voice to the angry, the alienated, and the fearless, and that roar still echoes today.
No matter the decade, the message remains the same. Question everything and make it loud.
Punk rock isn't something you grow out of. Punk rock is an attitude, and the essence of that attitude is give us some truth. Joe Strummer.